Alright, welcome back to another video, guys. Today we are doing 5 tips in Photoshop that I think everybody should know. These are fairly basic. Next week we're going to move into some more intermediate and then some advanced tips. So because Photoshop is so diverse, we obviously can't do every single thing in one video because it would just go for too long. Plus I think my brain would explode. But what we're going to go over today is the SinCity effect, which is also referred to as color isolation. Transparent exports, basically exporting out a file that has a supporting transparent layer involved with it, smart filters, window arrangement, and assigning keyboard shortcuts. So what we'll do is we'll start off with the first one, which is the SinCity effect or color isolation. You see this quite a lot. Basically what it is separating colors. A very common one that I'm going to do for today is the keeping color and putting out backgrounds to black and white. You see it a lot in wedding shots. You see it in people doing some fashion stuff. You see a little bit there, but it is pretty common in weddings. Some people I've had in past request that effect. So what we'll do today is I'll show you 2 different methods on how to do it. First one's very basic. What we're going to be doing is I'm going to duplicate the background layer. Command J. I always do that for every file. I'm going to go down to the Windows adjustments layer. Down here I'm going to add a hue and saturation adjustment layer. Now what I can do here is bring across the sliders over here. I'm going to bring the saturation all the way down, and as you can see it's gone to black and white. But because this is an adjustment layer, if I go and turn that off, all the color detail is still there. So what I'll do is I'm going to click on this mask thumbnail, hit my brush key, and what I can do is make sure that I'm painting with white. I can paint the color back in. Now again, I'm doing this really sketchy just because I want to keep this video as short as possible. All I'm doing is I'm painting back in the detail in their skin. It usually does help to zoom right in. Sorry, my computer's running a little bit slow at the moment. I'm exporting something out, so it's a little bit gluggy. As you can see, really rough job. Usually I'd go through and probably use a pen tool to make this a little bit more precise. But all I'm doing is painting their actual skin tones back in. Make sure it's on their face, right up in their eyes. Helps to get right in. Sometimes you can be working at 300%, getting right into the fine details. Like that, making sure you don't miss any little bits. I mean, for the purpose of this tutorial, it's not a big deal, but you can just see exactly what it's doing. Now keep in mind, I'm not erasing anything here. I'm using a layer mask, or a hue and saturation mask to be exact. And what that's doing is it's just painting back in detail that's been hidden from that mask. Now you can't see too much of a difference on the white because it's gone from black and white coming back into color. This is not a major detail there, but as you can see, there you go. Very quick way of getting the background to be black and white. That was one way of doing it. Another way that some people tend to do, I usually will use a hue and saturation adjustment layer. I find that to be a lot easier. All you can do is pretty much the same thing but using a layer mask. So again, I'll go I'll do a different black and white. So I'll go to adjustments, black and white, and I'll adjust my channels. I'll move this down, get this looking a little bit more punchy. Cool. So now I've got a standard black and white layer, but I've still got the duplicate background underneath. Now all I do is click on the layer at the top, hold down the option key and click on, oh sorry, no, I'll just put no, not option key for this one. All I'll do is I'll click on the mask, make sure that I'm painting with white, and I can just go ahead and do the exact same thing. Now this is just doing this exact same technique. Some people prefer to do it this way, some people use a layer mask, etc. It'll give you the exact same result in the end. Again, you can do this method 1,000 different ways. Once you start playing with your hue, you can then shift your colors and move everything around that way. But this is a really basic way to go through and get the background staying black and white and having your subjects come back into color. Usually you would make sure that you're being really precise, zooming right in, brushing, and being that you're painting on layer mask. Say for instance, if I was to zoom right in and go, oh yeah, sweet, oh whoops, oh my hand slipped, oh no, I've got all this green. All I do is hit the X key. What that's going to do is shift around the colors. You can see down in this bottom hand corner, the colors are shifting around. If you're painting on black, it's going to hide, and if you're painting with white, it's going to reveal whatever's behind. So I'll go, and all I can do is paint with the black, and it's going to re-hide these colors. So straight like that. So I can that way I don't have to go through and go back up my history list. So yeah, anyway, that was a quick example of how to do the SinCity effect or color isolation. Very basic. we'll go more into depth with this in the next episode. Anyway, what we're going to do now is talk about transparent objects and transparent exports. Now, basically a transparency layer is something that you can see through. Sometimes you'll see logos on websites where you won't see the background. You'll only see, for instance, I'll get a brush and I'll draw exactly what I'm talking about. For instance, sometimes you'll see logos where all you can see is just the outline like that, that's on the actual website. Now, obviously, doesn't look anything like that. I'm just drawing exactly where it was. The way people do that is they export their files out with a supporting transparent layer. Now, what that means is anything that's white, you can see through to the background. If I turn off this logo, you see this background, all these checkered boards, that symbolizes transparency in any document. Same with if you're in a video editing application or a motion graphics application like After Effects or Cinema 4D, anything like that, checkered boards like this always represents transparency. Now, what I can do is I'll show you a quick tip to get rid of the white. Say, for instance, you had a logo like this and somebody said that they wanted a transparent logo. A cool way to do it quickly, double click on the layer. In these layer styles, you can go down to this gradient down the bottom, hold down your Option key or Alt key on Windows, click, and what happens is it will start splitting your channel. So you can start pulling this back, and what that's doing is that's starting to eliminate your white. But you got to be careful because there's some gray in this image, and I don't want to get too far. So if I pull this back up, I can get the gray back in. Now, if I turn the preview on and off, you can see the white is being cleared, stripped out like that. Another way is to use the magic wand tool, but I don't think the magic wand is as accurate as this. So yeah, I can hit OK. All that's done is I've stripped away all the white. Now what I can do is I need to save this as an image file with a transparent layer. Now keep in mind, guys, JPEG is the most common format on the web for images, but it does not support transparency. What you have to be using is either a TIFF file or a PNG. I'd always recommend going for a PNG. The PNG file stands for Portable Networks Graphic, and we love those in photography or web design or motion animation because they accept transparency. Now, the best way to do that is you can do it two ways. You can go to Save, and what will happen is it will come up with a format drop-down. You can go down to PNG, or you can save it out as a TIFF. PNG, I always recommend that. Or I prefer to go save as web. That gives you a bit of a better compression. So hold down Shift, Alt, and Shift, Option, and Command on Mac, or Shift, Alt, and Option on Windows. Wish everyone just needs to be on Mac. I'm so sick of having to say that. So hold those three down and hit Save, or S for Save, and you'll get this Save for Web and Devices panel. Now what we're going to want to do is I'll zoom this out so you can see what's happening. The background, as you can see, is white in this. That's because the format's set to GIF, and this is not optimized to hold transparency. Oh, well, it is, but we're not going to want to use a GIF file because the compression isn't as good as a PNG. So if I go over to PNG, I'll just let that load up. What you'll notice is the background will go to white. There you go. You can see the checkered coming through. That means that transparency is activated. So always make sure that you've got transparency clicked on. The reason this is slow is obviously because this is a big file and I'm also exporting. So click transparency. As you can see, it becomes transparent there. I'll make this a little bit smaller. I'll make it 1000. And what I'll do is I'll hit save. I'll just go to my desktop and Editrix logo _ trans. Now I can go to my desktop. And where is it there? Desktop, Editrix Lands. Like that, and as you can see in the preview window, I can see through it. So I can see through to the back logo there. That if that was pure white, that would mean that this is not a transparent layer, but I can see through it like that. The good thing about preview on Mac is you're able to see transparency. So if I open that up into any other application, it would come straight in, and the document would look like this because I've removed the white. So that's a really good way to do it. I'd recommend that. Again, there's a couple of other ways, but for me that works the best. Alright, cool. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and play around with some smart filters. Now what I'll do is got the history panel here. I want to go straight up to the top. You can either click on the image or you can click back on open. That means you just bring it back to when Photoshop first opened it. Alright, so what we're going to do is smart filters are basically filters that are not embedding themselves into the photograph. So I'll show you exactly what I mean. So I'm going to duplicate the layer. I'm going to go up to filter and go convert for smart filters. Now don't get this confused with a smart object. Most people use smart objects if they're using raw files or if they are wanting to hold quality. A thing in Photoshop where is if you bring an image in and then you resize it down and then you hit enter and it accepts and then you resize it back up, you lose all of the quality. Now if you make a smart object and you did that, you can maintain the quality. So that's really good when you're doing web design or web pages or anything like that. I usually work in smart objects because they are great. But smart filters are more or less the same. It converts it to a smart object, but what it's doing is allowing this file now to have stacked and grouped filters. It's not embedding the filter into the file. So I'll show you exactly what I mean. So before I do that, let's go and add a bunch of different effects. So this is before I've converted to a smart filter. I'll hit Gaussian blur. I'll make it, 5 pixels. That's fine. I'll go ahead and I'll do, I'll unsharp mask. I'll make it look really dramatic so you can see the difference. Like that, and as you can see over in the layers panel, the image is nothing's actually happening to it. There's no adjustments that's being made because what's happening is these filters are being baked into this photograph. Now, obviously, I've got the background layer, which is the original, but this image here, if I wanted to go through and adjust the filters later on, I can't really do it. So what I'll do is I'll undo those 2 filters that I'll add, click on this image. Go up to filter, convert for smart filters, hit OK, and now watch what will happen. I'll do the exact same thing again. I'll go ahead and I'll add a Gaussian blur. I'll just let this catch up. I'll go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, 5 pixels, that's fine. And what happens now is you can see a little mask has come in underneath. Now what that's saying is it's like, okay, this has been converted to a smart filter and you can add anything to it and we're going to group and we're going to start adding filters, and we're not going to be, it's called non-destructive editing because I'm not destructing the actual file itself. So I can turn that off. I can go ahead and do my things to it, which is kind of cool. I can re-add, this is the best thing about it, is I can re-add the filter up. I can adjust it even more. So if I wanted, I can bring it back, hit OK. And again, it's not doing it to the image, it's putting a mask over it, so it's masking a filter. So again, I'll do exactly what I did before, so I'll add another filter. I'll go to sharpen, unsharp mask, make it look really dramatic, hit OK. And another cool thing is these are stacked. So in Photoshop with layers, the way that they work is anything that's on top takes precedence. So obviously this image here is on top of the bottom background. So I'll turn that off and the next background will come through, and so on and so on and so on. Exactly the same works for filters. I'll turn that off and you'll see it'll go straight through the Gaussian blur. But I can also rearrange these if I wanted to. So if I wanted to put the Gaussian blur on top, so it would be blurry and then sharp, I can just drag it and put it up on top. And there we go, it's going to realign them, and there we are. So it's now the Gaussian blur is on top, and then it comes through to the unsharp mask. So you can see as soon as I turn that on, it'll go blurry. So obviously these filters is not what I'd be doing to this image. It's just I'm using these for the pure fact that they're very visible in filters. You can see exactly what's going on. So that is a perfect way. I can also hit Shift and click, and that's gonna disable. Actually, no, sorry, that will not work. I apologize, guys. Shift and click will not hide the filters on this. It will usually do it for any other mask, but it doesn't actually do it for this one. But yeah, so anyway, that's a really good way to do it. Sorry guys, I've just opened up the layer, I don't need that. And yeah, so I can turn that off, and I can also go through and delete that. So that's a really good way to keep your filters stacked and organized, and then you can build them and see exactly what you're doing. Alright, cool. Next one we're going to talk about is window arrangement. Now, picture you're editing, you've shot a wedding for instance, and you're going to open up 40 images into Photoshop because you wanted to edit them. I recommend doing most of your work through Lightroom, but for the purpose of this tutorial, I'll show you what I mean. So I'm going to go and open up, what do I want? I'll go and open up a bunch of photographs. So go to all content. Now these are just some old photographs. What I'll do is I'll open them up into a Photoshop CS5, and this is probably 30 or 40 images that are coming through. These are all my old ones, and they're rather small, so at least it'll chew through them quickly. But what we've got up the top is, you can see these are all the tabs. It's a lot like an Internet Explorer or Firefox or Chrome or Safari. The more pages you've got open, they're going to be left to right. They're referred to as tabs. Now, sometimes tabs are a little bit difficult to work with, and you want to be able to see them as individual windows. This was a question I had from a friend of mine last night. He asked, how do I get all my images into Photoshop so I can see them and work on them easier, because he didn't like the way the tabs are working. So as soon as this loads, I'll show you how to do that. And what we're going to do after this is I'm going to go through and show you a couple of tips on how to, if you're a big fan of shortcuts like I am, shortcuts can really save you time. Most filters in Photoshop aren't set to custom shortcuts, so I'll show you how to do that. Alright, so as you can see, these have all loaded up, and they're all in tabs. Now, if I wanted to scroll through these, I can hit, I'm pretty sure it's Command and the tilde, yeah, and that'll scroll through them like that. So that's one way to do it. But what if I wanted to go through and see them next to each other, or basically get them out of the tabs? I go to Window, Arrange, and I can go to Float All in Windows. Now what that's going to do, it's going to split them all up. And there you go. As you can see, it's quite a lot of images that have been opened up. Another thing, if I wanted to go, so that's how you get them all into Windows, and as you can see, they're all separate there. Another way you can do it is, if you wanted to get the images looking smaller because you had a lot, you can go ahead and minimize it like that. So you can do that by hitting Command and the minus button. The minus and plus will zoom your photographs in. Go to Window, Arrange, Match All, and every other photograph just got matched to the exact same size. So that's good if you're doing previews for GIFs or anything like that. If you're doing GIF animation, it's a really good way to do it. Again, if you don't like that way, it's easy enough to go Arrange, Consolidate all to tabs. That'll throw it all back into one tab, and then Command tilde. That'll be able to shoot through all of them like that. So anyway, that's another quick tip. That's kind of cool. I use that quite often. Another one. Okay, so this is the last one, and we're going to talk about assigning shortcuts. Now, if we go into Image, what we see is a lot of these have shortcuts already come preset. Now, this is what Adobe's done, because it's been like this basically since the earlier versions. These have been the shortcuts, and they've kept them the same. But doesn't mean that you have to use these or be stuck with these shortcuts here. Now, what you'll notice if we go into Filters, very little of these, basically none, have any shortcut attached to them. Now, a lot of people say that you're not able to do it, but you can. If you go into Edit and you go to Keyboard Shortcuts and you go down to Filters, what you can see is a list of all the filters that come up. Now, some of them already have presets built into them. I usually use the presets like that. I haven't really done too much adjusting in CS5. I did a lot in CS4, and then I couldn't be bothered to go through and re-update all the images, all the shortcuts. Anyway, let's go down, and I'll show you an example, being that what's one that I use quite often? I'll usually use Gaussian blur if I'm doing something really light for the background. I can click on that, and it comes up with a little shortcut box. Let's say for this, I want to use, Command G. It's going to come up, it says, okay, Command G is already in use and will be used from layer group if accepted. It's like, okay, whatever. If I want to go back and change it later on, I can. So I'll hit accept. Okay. Now, if I want to go through and add a filter, if I say that I wanted to do my my Gaussian blur filter, all I need to do is I'll duplicate the layer, hit Command G. I've got to select the layer first. That always helps. Command G, and there we are. Gaussian blur comes straight up like that. So that's a filter that I can go through, and if it saves having to go to filter, blur, Gaussian blur, it can save me a lot of time like that. So that's a really quick way. One more quick tip that I'll add in there. Let's do a Gaussian blur filter. I'll hit OK. Filter, Gaussian blur, Command F. That's basically gonna repeat the filter. So if I hit Command F, hit Command F again. What that's gonna do is it's gonna stack those 5 pixels of blurriness on top of each other over and over. And you'll notice that because I pressed it about 5 times. As you can see, it's become quite blurry there. If I hit it again, it's going to become even blurrier. Hit it again, it's going to become even blurrier, and so forth. If I hit Command Option F, it's going to come up with the Gaussian blur again, and I can then adjust it to however I want. So that's repeating the effect, but just doing it a completely different way. So I'll delete that. Yeah, so there we go. So there's the SinCity effect. There's exporting images with transparency. There's smart filters, working with layers on filters. It's a very, very powerful way to get your images in order. And if you make a mistake, you can go back and easily change it. It's better than baking. It's better than baking your filter into the photograph and then having to go back up the history channel. We also did. I showed you the window arrangement and the assigning of a keyboard shortcut. So I hope that helped, guys. I'm going to do another one next week, and we'll also do some Lightroom killer tips that's going to help as well. So anyway, that's peace out for now. So thanks so much, guys. I'll catch up with you soon. All right, bye.